and with a stroke of her saber, the Sith are reborn. The Jedi are dead!
Just say the name, The Rise of the Skywalker, and for a lot of people, that's a trigger. Most people remember it being a chaotic and confusing end to a saga that defined generations. Look, I get it. Palpatine returned somehow. There's a lot of loose ends that they had to tie up, so there's a lot to debate. The film is far from perfect. It had an impossible job. It had to wrap up not just one trilogy, but 3, while also correcting all the mistakes made in Episode 8. Not to mention the tragic loss of Carrie Fisher. It almost feels like the film tried to please everybody, but in the end, it pleased almost nobody. But I'm here to say that the film is actually better than you remember. If you look past the controversy, you'll find a film with incredible spectacle, a surprising amount of heart, and a really satisfying emotional payoff for its main characters. This movie moves at hyperspeed. From the very beginning, Palpatine is back in the opening scene. Then you find out about the Sith Wayfinder. Like, this film almost never stops taking a breath. It's just going and going and going, jumping from one quest to another. And that might be a fair point, but what if we reframe that? What if that was one of the genius parts of the storytelling? The entire galaxy is on the verge of being enslaved by a fleet of planet-killing Star Destroyers.
The might of the final order will soon be ready. It will be yours if you do as I ask.
It puts you right there with Rey, Finn, and Poe, always feeling like you're one step behind. There's a lot going on and there's a lot to keep up with. This movie's an adrenaline-filled sprint, and when you rewatch it, knowing where it's all going, you can kind of just let go of trying to make sense of the plot and just enjoy the ride. It's a movie that's less careful about the plot and more about feeling, momentum, and urgency. And let's be real, for the final film in the Skywalker Saga, is a little fan service the worst thing in the world? Seeing Lando come back, who didn't like that? Chewie finally getting his medal, and all the voices of the Jedi cheering Rey on.
These are your final steps, Rey. Rise. And take them.
Rey. Bring back the balance, Rey, as I did.
These moments are pure nostalgic payoff. You can call it cheap, but it's also a deliberate choice to close out a 9-film story by hitting those classic notes and resolving the things that we waited decades to see. At its core, the entire saga is about the Skywalkers versus the dark side. The Rise of the Skywalker brings it full circle by cleverly framing new heroes as a modern version of the original icons. Kylo Ren's whole journey is about him wrestling with the ghost of Darth Vader. He's the masked, conflicted heir to the powerful dynasty, terrified he'll never live up to the legacy that he's chasing. But his story isn't just about repeat of Vaders. It's a new take on those themes of family, darkness, and redemption. He's less of a seasoned villain and more of a messed up man in turmoil, which makes his eventual turn feel both earned and tragic. The key moment isn't a lightsaber fight, it's a memory. When he faces his father, Han Solo, it's not because of a Force ghost, it's his own conscience finally breaking through. He chooses to forgive himself and all that his mother sacrificed, and that's what finally brings Ben Solo home. It's a quite powerful scene that feels more real than a sudden change of heart in a big battle. And then there's Rey. From her humble desert beginnings to her off-the-chart Force abilities, she's always been linked to Luke Skywalker. While The Last Jedi played with the idea that a hero can come from anywhere, the film throws a darker question at her. What if you were destined for evil? That's quite unique. Usually is what if you're destined to be a hero, but what if you were destined to be evil, making her Palpatine's granddaughter?
Long have I waited.
For my grandchild to come home. I never wanted you dead. I wanted you here.
Her real fight isn't against the First Order, but against her own bloodline and the darkness baked into her. The message becomes even stronger. It's not what you're born as, but who you choose to be. Her final act, taking the name Skywalker, isn't about denying her past. It's about choosing her family, the people who believed in her. It's a perfect book into the Skywalker legend, kicking off a new Jedi path founded, not on detachment, but on connection and love. Look, you can say whatever you want about the story, but you can't deny that The Rise of the Skywalker is a visual masterpiece. It's the peak of what the sequel trilogy did best. Stunning effects with modern polish. The sheer scale is also breathtaking. From the battle of Rey and Kylo on the Death Star wreckage to the gothic horror of Exegol, this film is an absolute feast for your eyes. It's beautiful. And JJ is one of those directors who knows the value of practical effects, and he pushed for it whenever he could at real locations, which gives the world a more lived-in feel. Like the Desert Festival, it was filmed in Jordan with thousands of extras, and they actually blasted the actors with actual water cannons to make the crashing waves feel real. There are some people who actually believe that I don't like practical effects because I don't like the original trilogy. They think just because I like the prequels more that I just like CGI. Well, that's not true. There's definitely still a need and a place for practical effects, and JJ nailed it. And while you can use practical effects for a lot of things, you can't use it for everything. For example, the return of Leia Organa was handled with incredible care. They used unused footage from the previous film, digitally weaved Carrie Fisher's performance into new scenes in a way that felt seamless and deeply respectful. And with all the chaos chaotic action, the emotional core of the Rise of the Skywalker is actually strong, especially when you watch it again. Star Wars has never really been about the spaceships, it's about the relationships. And after being split up for most of The Last of the Jedi, Rey, Finn, and Poe are back together. Their friendship, their bickering, the jokes, the way that they have each other's back is what powers the whole story. And it almost identically mimics the original trilogy's dynamic. It drives home one of the saga's biggest themes. You can't just win this fight alone. You're going to need help. The emotion really lands in this film, like Leia's sacrifice using her last bit of strength to reach her son. It's a beautiful and heartbreaking goodbye to a cinematic legend. And then to see C-3PO willing to get his memory wiped just to save his friends. It's a genuine move who's usually there just for comic relief. But the real emotional gut punch comes in the final act. Ben Solo's redemption is completed when he gives his own life force to save Rey. A selfless act that brings their complicated story to a bittersweet and unbelievable end. It was an emotional ending for a villain just like Darth Vader. And then we see Rey standing on the sands of Tatooine watching a twin set sets just like Luke did all those years ago. She buried Luke and Leia's lightsabers, laying the Skywalker family saga to rest. Before igniting her own, a unique yellow blade. And I gotta say, it looks good. I hope we see it again because she's gonna be a force to be reckoned with. Trained by the Skywalkers with the power of the Palpatines, I don't know what you do with that. And she was almost destined for evil, which makes her story even more interesting. Her lighting up that yellow lightsaber is a moment of peace, promise, and a new beginning built on the legacy of the past. It's the kind of mythic ending that gives 4 decades of storytelling a meaning. There was a lot of passion put in this film because it's a new saga for a new generation while also honoring every one of the original characters. And one last thing before I close out this video, I really like the horror element that they had in episode 9. That whole Palpatine scene in that arena. I wish they would have been like that in the Acolyte. The Acolyte should have been a Star Wars horror, but that's a completely different video. Anyways, the Rise of Skywalker is messy, but is ambitious. It tries to do the impossible by wrapping up half a century of storytelling, and it has a whole lot more emotion than you might remember. But what do you think? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.
Your friend's old job was running spice.
You were a spice runner? You were a stormtrooper?
Were you a spice runner?
Were you a scavenger? We could do this all night.